Welcome back to the channel. If you love real true crime stories that sound impossible but are 100% real, you're in the right place. There was an inmate in a maximum security prison who became famous for one reason: he never spoke. Not once. No arguments, no threats, no begging, no explanations. Not to guards, not to doctors, not to other inmates. He could be screamed at, punished, moved to isolation, even denied privileges, and he would still sit there like a statue. The prison staff gave him a nickname, the Ghost, because it was like he wasn't even there. Nobody knew what he was thinking. Nobody knew what he was hiding. And the strangest part, he wasn't serving life. He was serving a short sentence for a minor violent charge, the kind of case that usually has a simple story behind it. But with him, there was no story. No past, no family visits, no friends, no records anyone could trace. Just a silent man behind a locked door. Years passed. Then one morning, everything changed. A new guard was assigned to his unit. This guard had heard all the rumors that the inmate was insane, that he was dangerous, that he was faking, that he was planning something. But when the guard looked inside the cell, he noticed something that made his stomach drop. The inmate was writing, over and over, on scraps of paper, on the back of old forms, even on the inside of a book cover. And what he was writing wasn't random. It was names, full names, dozens of them, some crossed out, some circled, some underlined like they were important. The guard stared for a moment and finally asked him a simple question. Who are those people? The inmate stopped writing. He didn't look up right away. He just froze. Then slowly, he raised his head, and for the first time in over 10 years, he spoke. His voice was low, calm, and almost emotionless. He said, "I'm ready." The guard thought he meant ready for what? Ready for transfer? Ready for court? But then the inmate slid the paper toward the door and said something that made the guard call for backup instantly. He whispered, "I did all of it." At first, nobody believed him, because criminals lie all the time. They brag, they exaggerate, they confess for attention. But this man wasn't excited. He wasn't proud. He wasn't even nervous. He looked relieved. Within an hour, the prison warden, investigators, and detectives were standing outside his cell. They asked him the obvious question, "What do you mean you did all of it?" And that's when the inmate started talking like a man who had been waiting his whole life for this moment. He began listing crimes. Not one, not two, but many unsolved murders, disappearances, cold cases from different cities. He described locations, dates, names, and details only the killer would know. The detectives looked at each other in shock, because as he spoke, they realized something terrifying. Some of these cases were famous, cases that had been on the news for years, cases that destroyed families, cases where police had suspects, but no proof. And this man was calmly describing them like he was reading a grocery list. Then he leaned forward and said the sentence that made the room go completely silent. "You only caught me for the smallest one." That's when the warden asked him the question everyone was thinking. "Why didn't you speak all these years?" The inmate stared at the wall for a long moment. Then he answered with one chilling line, "Because nobody asked the right way." Investigators started verifying what he said, and the more they checked, the worse it got. One name he mentioned belonged to a missing person case that had never been made public. Another name was tied to a body found in a location the media never revealed. He described what the victims were wearing. He described how he got rid of evidence. He described how he watched the news afterward, just to see if anyone was close. And the scariest part, he wasn't confessing because he felt guilty. He was confessing because he was tired. Tired of holding it in. Tired of being silent. Tired of waiting. Before the interview ended, A detective asked him one final question. "How many?" The inmate smiled slightly and said, "More than you'll ever solve." If you want to know what he confessed to, comment confession right now. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story is even darker, and you won't want to miss it.